What is up, YouTube? What's going on, fellow fantasy people? And of course, what is up, the Catch fam? Already no time in this, man. We are rolling right into another mock draft. I've got the 11th overall selection in a PPR scoring format, 12-man league. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a lot of 12-man mock drafts as I have got a 12-man draft on Wednesday, September 8th. That will include my co-host Steven. So, definitely time for me to be getting as prepared as I possibly can. But as always, please let me know in the comments down below what style of mock drafts you guys need to see for your personal fantasy league. And of course, go ahead and smash that like button. And as always, man, we are on the road to 100 subs here at the Catch. It's been an incredible journey this last month or so. And go ahead and help us reach that goal of 100 subs by subscribing. Let's hop right into it, man. Christian McCaffrey with the first selection. No surprise there. But overall, with this 11th overall selection, definitely going to be targeting a running back and then turning around and getting another running back in the second round. What I want to do here is really stay true to kind of my old fantasy strategy of just going super RB heavy with a good wide receiver one sprinkled in there, and then kind of diverting to the tight end position, but holding off at the quarterback position for a majority of this draft and kind of rolling with a sleeper guy, someone who maybe like a Ryan Tannehill, who's not being really looked at in terms of like a top 10 quarterback, but someone who could be a top 10 quarterback by all standards, a Matt Stafford, even like a Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence type of guy. So we'll get to the quarterback position at the end of this draft. Until then, we want to go very RB heavy, really get a lot of different handcuff situations, different running backs who could have the potential to be the RB1 in their respective offenses. But like I said, we do want a pretty strong receiver on this roster as well, excuse me, and it's going to be kind of, we're not exactly sure when we're going to target that receiver. Probably in the fourth round is where it's going to make the most sense, but we do want to come out here with three very strong running backs to start this mock draft. So, two more selections until we pick. Let's go ahead and see who's available at the running back position, as we've seen a large run at the RB position. A lot of good players off the board, and now Devontae Adams and Jonathan Taylor off the board. We see Austin Eckler sitting here, as well as Antonio Gibson and Najee Harris. What I would like to do is actually pick up either Austin Eckler or Antonio Gibson here. I really don't think you're going to go wrong with either guy. Let's roll with Eckler for the sake of this mock draft. And now we want to turn around and select Najee Harris. And we see Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs off the board, no longer available. Looks like we have a very wide receiver heavy strategy going on there. Let's add Najee Harris. We're going to pass on Antonio Gibson, but like I said, I wouldn't mind either Eckler or Gibson there, but I did want Najee Harris there with our second round selection. So now we have 19 more picks, as we see Travis Kelce off the board, 19 more selections until we draft again. In the third round, we want to turn around and target a guy like David Montgomery or James Robinson, and then turn around in the fourth round and select a receiver. So we will see what happens here. And we are definitely excited to see what running back we end up with. We definitely want it to be that of James Robinson, but we will essentially just be kind of observing things here and seeing what is going on. It looks like Joe Mixon's off the board, and we've got some slow picks in the works. So let's say both David Montgomery and James Robinson do get selected. Then I would kind of move into the next tier of that being either Miles Sanders or Josh Jacobs for me. I'm really not too crazy about going out and getting Gus Edwards, but I am definitely starting to consider him more and more. It was confirmed that we have the RB2 of the Baltimore Ravens coming out and being named, and it's also been confirmed at the moment that they are not looking to add another running back to that offense at the moment, and I can't remember. There he is. Tyson Williams will be the RB2 in the Baltimore Ravens offense, according to that of John Harbaugh. And according to him, they are not going out and adding a veteran free agent, but you never know. Sometimes coaches say all that stuff and they do the complete opposite. But I do think that helps Gus Edwards. Don't get me wrong. And I don't really mind where they have him projected around 11 to 1,200 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns. I mean, I certainly could see that happening, and if it does, then he's a very good, valuable player from where you can draft him. So I don't know. My biggest issue is Lamar Jackson's on that offense. You guys already know I wasn't really big on selecting J.K. Dobbins, but we'll see what happens. The Ravens love Gus Edwards. They've paid him a lot of money to stay with the Ravens, and he's definitely going to be utilized in that offense. But I think there's some more clear-cut RB1s like James Robinson and David Montgomery, excuse me, in that kind of same tier where you can get Gus Edwards. So I'm just higher on those two guys than I am on Gus Edwards at the moment. But if you go out and draft Gus Edwards, I'm not going to knock you for it, man. I think he's still pretty valuable overall. So we have now seen AJ Brown, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Darren Waller off the board, as well as Terry McLaurin. So we will just kind of keep evaluating things. 9 selections until we pick, and our prime targets are sitting right here, looking very attractive to the others in this mock draft. So we might have to consider going receiver here or getting a guy like Gus Edwards, Miles Sanders, or Josh Jacobs, right? But if we were to go receiver, I mean, any of these guys from CeeDee Lamb all the way down to Deontay Johnson look pretty valuable to me. So it's kind of one of those points where we just kind of have to sit back and hope maybe a couple quarterbacks start to go, maybe some more tight ends start to go as George Kittle is still on the board. I mean, Josh Allen's on the board, and a lot of good receivers, so we could potentially see a big run on receivers here. But it's also very likely that both the running backs that we want get selected here, and that's kind of you know, where things are a little scary in terms of this strategy, because I definitely want to go out and be able to get 2 strong players like Austin Eckler and Najee Harris, and then be able to turn around and go out and get like a David Montgomery and James Robinson. But I think in this mock draft, the way it's looking, I don't think it's going to happen. So the other option here is that we just go extremely RB heavy as we see Patty Mahomes and David Montgomery off the board, and we take a Josh Jacobs here, and then we turn around and we take a guy, maybe like a Gus Edwards or a Miles Sanders there, and then we kind of divert to the receiver position. But we do want a pretty strong receiver, so I think that we can either come out here with a receiver 1 and an RB, or we can go receiver in the 5th round, that is. So we'll see what happens here. I mean, James Robinson is off the board. We are up next. So we could target a Mike Evans, a Chris Godwin, who just got selected, so never mind. But Gus Edwards sitting here, who I actually kind of like, although, I mean, I just talked about reasons why I don't like him. I mean, we know that our guy Jack Morgan is probably going to want a running back here, and we are looking very RB heavy, so we do want to make the selection of either that of Gus Edwards or Josh Jacobs here. I'm going to roll with Josh Jacobs. I think that Jack Morgan is probably going to, I mean, he might take George Kittle, he takes Miles Sanders, and he takes George Kittle. Okay, so he passes on Gus Edwards. For the sake of this mock draft, let's change the entire strategy. Let's just go super RB heavy. Let's take Gus Edwards, who I just talked about. I mean, if he is the 4th running back on your team, then I think he's a great value. If he's the 3rd running back on your team, he's still a very good value. I just think as an RB1 or RB2, I'm not completely sold. So we have diverted away from going out and getting a strong receiver 1, but I still think we can end up with 2 very valuable receivers on top of these 4 running backs, and that of Austin Eckler, Najee Harris, Josh Jacobs, and Gus Edwards. So we will kind of sit back. We've got 16 more selections. We know we want a receiver. We could possibly pick up a tight end here as well, but nonetheless, we know that we have gone very heavy RB. I don't know, man. I think that I'm probably going to like my rosters more overall if I go triple RB and then receiver. But I mean, I don't mind going out and stacking up at the running back position ever. I think there's enough depth at the receiver position. I think there's enough good tight ends out there. And like I said, for the purpose of this mock draft, we were holding off at the quarterback position, that is, for quite some time. And we're just going to go with some under the radar guys, some sleeper guys, some rookie guys. And to be quite honest, that's typically what I do in past drafts in fantasy football. I haven't valued the quarterback position. Now, I've talked about this a lot this current offseason / preseason about how I do believe that has hurt me. It's hurt me in the playoffs. It's hurt me on, towards a championship week as well. Like last year, I had Justin Herbert as my main QB. He kind of cooled off during the playoff period. The year before that, I had Ryan Tannehill. So got both of those guys in those respective years off of the waiver wire. And usually I end up drafting someone who's really not that great overall. So, it's kind of a gamble here. But the thing that's nice about going out and selecting a receiver in the 5th round is you can typically see someone like Julio Jones, he just got selected, or Brandon Ayuk and Adam Thielen, Deontay Johnson, all available in the 5th round. So even though they might get selected before we pick here at pick 59, we kind of have seen those types of receivers fall into the 5th and 6th round. And you guys know that I already have a ton of receivers lined up in those later rounds. I mean, Corey Davis, we got Callaway, we got all kinds of options in the later rounds. I mean, Mike Williams. There's a lot of value in late rounds at the receiver position, but we are definitely seeing a lot of good players off the board here. Damian Harris, Kyler Murray, Deontay Johnson. So let's go ahead and check out the QB position. I mean, Lamar Jackson still available. Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert. A lot of good value at the quarterback position still available. Running backs, who I know we've gone very heavy on. I mean, there's still a lot of good names out there. I mean, Myles Gaskin, Mike Davis, Ronald Jones the second, as well as Leonard Fournette, as we see Brandon Ayuk off the board. So I mean, I think that we're going to be able to add a lot of good value to this roster here in these later rounds. We still see a lot of good tight ends available. I mean, that's another option we could do as well. We could target a guy like a Hawkinson or Mark Andrews, as Kyle Pitts just got selected, and pair him, or pair one of those players with a wide receiver one. But nonetheless, we would like to be able to snag. We see Adam Thielen off the board and Mark Andrews. We'd like to be able to get a very good receiver here, and like a Chase Claypool, a Jerry Jeudy, a Robbie Anderson, as we see Lamar Jackson off the board. But if TJ Hawkinson is sitting here, he might be the best overall value for this team. With that being said, I still think that we will be able to get a tight end that we're happy with in the 7th or 8th round, or even potentially the 9th round. So Hawkinson sitting here, a tremendous value. I mean, they've got him projected over 1,000 receiving yards and close to 9 touchdowns. And you guys know that I've really been big on TJ Hawkinson all offseason and preseason. But let's go out, let's get my guy Jerry Jeudy, and then let's turn around and let's draft Robbie Anderson. We're really making these two selections based off of strength of schedule, right? The Denver Broncos at the wide receiver position, as well as the Carolina Panthers at the wide receiver position, have extremely easy strength of schedules. If Robbie Anderson were to get picked here, then we probably just roll with Chase Claypool, who I also really like. I mean, it's good to note that both of these receivers are available here, as well as a top talent QB and a top talent tight end. But we will roll with Robbie Anderson and keep moving right along. I mean, I think that this team looks pretty good, right? We have two receivers that we're happy with, knowing the analytics around them. I mean, they're not extremely flashy names by any means, but we know how easy their strength of schedules are, and we have conviction in those players. They might be a lot lower ranked than other wide receivers, but they are going to have good fantasy years, and we are happy with them filling in those kind of glaring holes at the receiver position on this roster. So now, moving into the 7th round, we want to look at a tight end and another receiver, or potentially another running back like a Ronald Jones as a we know there are going to be some late round guys at the receiver position available, and we can already see Ronald Jones creeping up on the board. We would love if a guy like Chase Claypool somehow fell to us, but definitely more than likely not going to happen. And then let's take a look at the tight end position. We see Robert Tonyan still hanging around and Mike Gesicki. I mean, based off of Yahoo's ratings, I mean, those are my top guys here. Will they be available come draft time for myself at that point and later rounds? I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these late round receivers. Antonio Brown, Corey Davis, and Chenault Jr., as well as Mike Williams, are guys you are going to be able to start every week, as well as our guy Callaway on the Saints. I mean, Jalen Waddle's hanging down here. I mean, there's a lot of good players who have the potential to be wide receiver ones on their potential team. DJ Chark and Chenault Jr. are guys that really need to be crept up on your boards. And Antonio Brown, he just got selected. Obviously, doesn't have the potential to be the wide receiver one, but from a PPR standpoint, he is going to put up a lot of value this year, even though he is a wide receiver 3 in that Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, right? So we will kind of sit back here and see who gets selected. I would say that Robert Tonyan and Ronald Jones, the second, are our top targets. And then coming in the ninth and 10th round, we can turn around and start to stack up a few more of those receivers and start to look at the quarterback position as well. As we now see Jalen Hurts off the board, we are going to see a lot of talent at the quarterback position selected in the coming rounds. But nonetheless, we are holding off till the end for a quarterback. I don't know exactly. I mean, we're still going to want to kind of evaluate where these quarterbacks are going, but I think some of these quarterbacks are going to surprise us this year. I mean, a lot of people have written off Joe Burrow, right? But I think he's going to still have a very good year. I'm not entirely concerned about his injury. I think he's going to be able to push through it. I mean, a lot of these other guys were still fantasy relevant last year. I mean, Kirk Cousins, an extremely safe selection. I mean, nonetheless, we'd like to end up with a guy like Ryan Tannehill or Matt Stafford on the roster. But if we don't, I mean, you guys know that I've been taking or I've had, some high value in Tua. There's a lot of rookies here: Trey Lance, Justin Fields. We already mentioned Trevor Lawrence. Mac Jones is now a fantasy player to at least think about. Like I've already talked about a little bit, I don't think that the way that offense is ran, he's going to have an exceptional fantasy year by any means. But I do think that you have to at least look at him, especially in your deeper leagues. And the bottom line is, one of these quarterbacks is going to come out and give us that same value that Justin Herbert gave us last year. We might not see it to that extreme, but we have some of these quarterbacks who are definitely, running threats as well, like a Trey Lance or a Justin Fields. So not going to give us the exact same value that Justin Herbert did, but nonetheless, from a fantasy perspective, some of these rookie quarterbacks are going to come out, get the opportunity to play, and prove themselves as very valuable fantasy players who will be on rosters throughout the season. So I don't think it hurts to make them part of your draft strategy, but nonetheless, let's hone in two more selections until we pick. We definitely want to target Ronald Jones here and get really our final running back on this RB heavy squad, and then turn around and get a tight end secured as well, which I think will probably push Ryan Tannehill and Matt Stafford potentially out of the picture for us. But that's kind of the strategy that we were going in here. As we see Juju off the board, let's snag up our guy Ronald Jones, and then I don't believe that Jack Morgan. Oh, that's right, he did pick George Kittle. So yeah, I do believe that we are going to be able to go out and select that of Robert Tonyan here and secure our tight end. But if we wanted to go ahead and grab a QB right now, we could, right? And then we could divert back to Mike Gesicki. That sounds like it makes more sense, right? And we still held out pretty extreme at the quarterback position, which could, Jack Morgan, I don't think, yeah, he doesn't have a QB. It's very likely that he takes Ryan Tannehill here. So we're kind of looking at either Robert Tonyan or Ryan Tannehill here. And I still think that we waited some time to get a quarterback. It looks like our guy is kind of doing the same strategy that we talked about. Let's secure the quarterback position. We still waited a good while to secure our quarterback. And obviously, the strong suit of this roster is the running back position. As we now see Robert Tonyan off the board, I still have faith we're going to be able to turn around in the ninth round here and get Mike Gesicki and still feel very good at the tight end position overall. I mean, there's still three guys ahead of Mike Gesicki. This is not updated, but Irv Smith Jr., in case you guys have not heard, he is going to miss the entire season more than likely due to that surgery. Originally, he was going to get the surgery and be able to come back probably in like early October. That is not happening. Excuse me. He is out for the season, and it looks like our guy who should be hiding somewhere all the way down here, Chris Herndon, should be the tight end one in that Minnesota offense, and we'll see how that plays out. It's kind of a stay away situation for me. I wasn't really high on Irv Smith Jr. to begin with, right? And I just don't think that it's a situation that I really want to get involved in. But with that being said, over the past couple years, Kirk Cousins has liked to target the tight end position. He had some good chemistry with Kyle Rudolph, so it could certainly be worth a look, and it could certainly play out well for you as well. But for me, it's a stay away situation. So, nonetheless, 11 more picks until we select. I would like to actually try and get two receivers here. I would really like to end up with Corey Davis and Chenault Jr. on this team and then be able to turn around in the 12th round and get Mike Gesicki. It's definitely doable. If it doesn't happen, we're going to look pretty weak at the tight end position, but I think it's worth trying for the sake of this mock draft, right? And I know that we've kind of moved around this strategy just a little bit throughout this mock draft, but sometimes that's the best thing to do. Sometimes you need to adapt what strategy you go in with, and that's why doing these mock drafts is so important to get you used to trying different strategies and kind of changing them up as they go, because crazy things happen when you actually draft and you need to be able to adapt. So nonetheless, we are definitely targeting Corey Davis and Chenault Jr. or DJ Chark. I really just want either of these guys, the number one and number two receivers on that Jacksonville Jaguars team. I mean, we see that DJ Chark has been dealing with hand surgery. So at the moment, I just think that Chenault Jr. has shown really good chemistry with Trevor Lawrence in the preseason. So I feel pretty good overall about adding him to our roster. The other guy that I like here is Devonta Smith of the Philadelphia Eagles, who I believe will be the wide receiver one on that Philadelphia Eagles team. So I think that we have some very good options at the wide receiver position, and that's why I just don't panic whatsoever at the wide receiver position. We're nearing the top of the 10th round at the end of the ninth round here, and there's still valuable wide receiver ones available. I don't care if they're on the Jacksonville Jaguars or the New York Jets football team, man. These are still fantasy wide receiver ones. Are they going to put up Mike Evans numbers or Devontae Adams numbers? No, absolutely not. But look at the round we're in and what wide receivers we can select in comparison to what running backs we can select here. It is a much, much different story overall. And we have one more selection until we pick. I mean, look at where they have Corey Davis projected, over 1,200 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. I mean, we're in the ninth round, man. That's extreme value. So I don't know. I know that a lot of these receivers, realistically, come draft day, are going to be targeted much higher. As we saw Mike Williams off the board, another guy that we were looking at here, and now we see Devin Singletary and Joe Burrow off the board. So I am going to rock with Chenault Jr. here. And man, I really like this team, especially if we can go out and secure Mike Gesicki, which we've taken a little bit of a risk on. But look at this, man. Look at the running back position. Austin Eckler, Najee Harris, Josh Jacobs, Gus Edwards, and Ronald Jones, the second. Absolutely loaded, man, at the running back position, at the receiver position. Two receivers that I have high conviction in, Jerry Jeudy and Robbie Anderson. We know that their strengths of schedules are very, very easy from a fantasy perspective. Outside of that, we still got Corey Davis and Chenault Jr., who offer tremendous value where we drafted them. Feeling very good at this. And yeah, like I said, we wanted to stay away from the quarterback position, but we strategically went out and selected Ryan Tannehill, and we still stayed away from the the QB position overall, and I think we got a tremendous value at the QB position. So now we will sit back. I mean, we see Mike Gesicki is moving up on the overall board. So we will go ahead and start to queue up a couple other players as we should have. Let's see if I can scroll down. Yeah, only two more spots for us to fill here. So nonetheless, I think that we can go out and get some very valuable players to fill out this roster with. I mean, Callaway still sitting here. We could target another QB as well, kind of give Ryan Tannehill some support. We could get another tight end. Let's go ahead and just roll through everything. At the wide receiver position, I think Callaway is absolutely our top target. At the running back position, Naheem Hines is really the only guy I would consider here. Let's check out the tight end position. I mean, we know that we want Mike Gesicki, but outside of him, there's some other guys available that I wouldn't mind drafting, even in a 12-man league. At the QB position, we're going to continue to hold off, but top guy is probably that of Trevor Lawrence or Trey Lance is kind of where I'm sitting. I like Justin Fields a lot as well. I think he definitely has potential to start pretty early this year, but we'll see. How those situations shake out. And that's kind of the nice thing about having Ryan Tannehill here is that we have that flexibility to be able to draft a rookie quarterback. But nonetheless, we will just sit back. We've got a lot of time until we draft, as we see Will Fuller, who I think is a really good value here, taken in the 11th round. Some of the players that we want are kind of creeping up on the overall. I will say, if we don't select Mike Gesicki, then I will go out and target two tight ends and kind of give us some better overall support at the tight end position. But I've got a good feeling that we have a good chance to snag Mike Gesicki here as well. But nonetheless, let's just say that he does get picked. Let's go ahead and start planning, right? Evan Ingram gives us good PPR value. Gronk is sitting here, Jared Cook, as well as, a couple other guys. I think Cole Kmet could have actually a pretty good year at the tight end position. Gerald Everett is sitting here. And we have the New England Patriots tight ends. I think that at the moment, Jonnu Smith is the better selection just with Hunter Henry dealing with some injuries. But I think both of them have the opportunity to have pretty good fantasy years overall. We've got my sleeper down there, Pat F. hiding. So I don't know that Pat F situation is going to work out, but he should be on your watch list moving into the regular season, especially in deeper leagues. He might need to be considered on your draft board in like 14 plus man leagues. In my 20-man league, he's someone who I have on my draft board, but outside of that, just someone to monitor in the waiver wire as we get past week one, which is right around the corner, man. It's crazy. It feels like this off season / preseason has flown by, man. I know myself and my co-host Steven are super stoked, man, for this upcoming football season. It's going to be a blast, man. We're happy to pump out fantasy content day in and day out for you guys, as well as NFL updates. So nonetheless, let's hone in here. We have two more selections until we pick, as we've seen a couple QBs taken here, right? Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, Trevor Lawrence, as well as the Denver Broncos. You think about it, in the 11th round, Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, and Trevor Lawrence are very good overall values in my opinion. But let's check and see who these guys got the tight end position. And yeah, man, I had a feeling this guy had Robert Tonyan. He gave himself some great support at tight end with that of Mike Gesicki. So let's think for a second. I mean, if we hadn't taken our two wide receivers with that last two selections we had. Let's hold off because I only have 15 seconds to draft. But let's secure a guy that we really want on this team, and that of Callaway of the New Orleans Saints. I got kind of grilled for pronouncing his first name wrong in the comments, so I'm going to stay away from saying it for now. But nonetheless, we see Jarvis Landry and Trey Lance off the board, and now I do believe that we probably want two tight ends on this team because we're kind of drafting from a little bit of a weaker, standpoint. So let's add Gerald Everett as he has a good chance to break out in that Seattle Seahawks offense. But yeah, let's say that we hadn't rolled with Chenault Jr. and we had just gone out and secured our tight end and that of Mike Gesicki. Well, at this point, let's look at the receivers that we could have gotten. I mean, Marvin Jones is sitting here. There's a couple other guys, Jacoby Myers that we like, Jalen Waddle. So I feel pretty solidified in that selection of Chenault Jr., but we did end up with Callaway, which could have, basically giving us the same type of value, but nonetheless, we got good depth at the receiver position. And now our weakest position on this team is the tight end position. And like I said, we want to give Gerald Everett some support there, and that's what we'll do with our final selection here. But nonetheless, I think we ended up with a good roster. While we're waiting for that next tight end selection, as well as our defensive and kicker position, let's go ahead and let's break down the roster, man. So at the QB position, like I said, we held off for some time, but we still ended up with a really good value in that of Ryan Tannehill, someone who I'm confident can lead our team all season long, and then come to that bye week, we can pick up a waiver wire guy and roll with whomever we need to. At the receiver position, I feel pretty confident in these wide receivers. We've got Jerry Jeudy, Robbie Anderson, Corey Davis, Chenault Jr., and Callaway of the New Orleans Saints, all on this roster, and I feel like all those guys are going to produce and give us the support at the receiver position that we need. Outside of that, man, absolutely loaded at the running back position. Austin Eckler, Najee Harris, Josh Jacobs, Gus Edwards, and Ronald Jones II. We have a lot of potential for RB1s on this squad. Between those five guys, we have five potential RB1s, and at least only two or three guys who maybe have a little bit of a question mark, and that of Josh Jacobs, Gus Edwards, and Ronald Jones II, and kind of being in handcuff situations, or at least have guys on their respective teams who might eat into some of their carries throughout the season. But nonetheless, very, very happy with those five running backs. I don't feel bad in any way whatsoever about going out and getting those guys early. We would have loved to get a David Montgomery or James Robinson on the squad, but we just missed those selections by a few spots. But nonetheless, a lot of very good receivers, a lot of very good running backs. Our glaring kind of position right now is the tight end position. We just missed out on selecting Mike Gesicki, but we could have gotten him over that of Chenault Jr. But nonetheless, I think that this roster still looks pretty solid. The tight end position is one that is going to be a little scary if you don't come out of the draft with someone that you really, really feel confident in. But I will say, from Eric Ebron up, all of these guys have the chance to break out and be week 1, week 2, week 3 waiver wire targets. So I think that if you do come out of your draft feeling pretty light at tight end, there's still a chance you can go out and get a pretty good guy, but it's going to have to happen early in this season rather than later. That's typically when we see these tight end ones on their respective teams emerge, and we kind of know when and if they are going to be fantasy relevant or not. But nonetheless, I feel like targeting that of Hunter Henry is probably the best selection here. Another option is we could forfeit a kicker and go out and get like a Hunter Henry and Evan Ingram, a Hunter Henry and Rob Gronkowski, a Jared Cook, as we now have just seen Evan Ingram off the board. So, I really feel like between all these guys, we're going to make a decent draft selection, whether it be Hunter Henry, Rob Gronkowski, or Jared Cook. I mean, I'd be happy with any of these guys. I think that they provide very good tight end to value, and we're kind of banking on Gerald Everett and having a breakout year, but I think all of these guys are going to have pretty good years overall. So let's just add Hunter Henry for the sake of this mock draft, and note that Gronk and Jared Cook were available there. And let's move on and see what defenses are available, and we'll go ahead and target that of the Indianapolis Colts, and then we will know that a kicker will fall to us. So I won't waste your guys' time. I know I've done that a couple of times where I make you guys sit here and wait until I select a kicker, but it's just a kicker, man. We can go ahead and show you guys what kickers are available. I know you guys probably don't care. I mean, my top target out of these guys would definitely be Jason Sanders and Rodrigo Blankenship, who both had fantastic fantasy years last year. Other than that, Daniel Carson, as well as Chris Boswell, would probably be the next top targets. But nonetheless, I thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. As always, let me know in the comments down below what type of mock drafts you guys need to see for your personal fantasy leagues. I'm happy to conduct and produce whatever type of content you guys want to see, as is my co-host Steven. With that being said, if you guys found this helpful or enjoyable, go ahead and smash the like button, man. It truly, truly truly helps out the channel, gives us that little bit of a boost in the good old YouTube algorithm. And as always, man, we are on the road to 100 subscribers here at the Catch. This last month has been an absolute blast, an absolute journey. Shout out to all of the Catch fam, all of our subscribers giving us so much love and support, man. Go ahead and hit the sub button. Over 94% of our viewers are not subscribed, and a fair amount of you guys are coming back and watching content. It takes 1 second to hit that sub button, and it truly means the world to us. And with that, I will thank you guys one more time for watching and or listening. And as always, you saw it here on The Catch.